For spring break of 2019, I took a school trip over to Toronto, Canada. I'm sure as you know, Toronto, Canada is a decently large city, but as somebody who's lived in Lapeer for most of my life, it's the biggest I'd ever been to. It was weird going to for the first time, but me and my friends had a blast. If you ever have the chance to go to Toronto, Canada, I'd recommend you visit Casa Loma, the CN Tower, Ripleys Aquarium, and if you have the time, Niagara Falls. First place I'd recommend is Casa Loma. Casa Loma is a historic house that has now been converted into a museum that was built in about 1911 to 1914. It's mostly a place to host like war memorabilia and such, which is great if that's your thing, but there's plenty of other opportunities. There's a restaurant or two, there's obviously a gift shop. But when you enter into the building, there's this large main room with this grand piano, and in front of that is just this open stage almost where they let bands play. And as a band kid, I can say the sound in that room is beautiful. You could just sit there for minutes and minutes on end listening to them play their gorgeous sounds that you can hear anywhere else. And if you take a left from that entry room, there's this big wide open garden, but the main focus of this garden is actually the ceiling. Because if you look up, there's this giant like roof window that's covered in flowers. It's such a beautiful image. And this being an old house has tunnels under the ground. And if you go down there, there's like another garden, that second restaurant I said, the gift shop's down there too. And there's like old cars and such, but there's also horse stables. And in the horse stables, for whatever reason, there's dragons. Like just full scale dragon setups. It's so weird. You'd have to see it yourself. But like overall, it's a pretty good experience. Next up, I'd say you drive downtown past Rogers Center and go climb up CN Tower. CN Tower is the world's 9th tallest freestanding building at about 1,815.3 feet. And it's just your average tall tower, but the view up there, so gorgeous. You can just see the lake stretch on for miles and miles. The water's just gorgeous from up there. And another bonus is right down about like at the shore, there's a tiny airport. Like not that big, but like big enough that it's a good sized airport, and you can just sit there for ages and watch planes land and take off and land and take off. I thought it was hilarious, and I had a wonderful time just watching the planes land and take off, and it's a beautiful sight. But if you really don't prefer heights, another thing you could do is go down the CN Tower, and right next door is visit Ripley's Aquarium. I had personally never been to an aquarium before, so it was a first for me, but I'd really say it was a great experience. This aquarium had this long, winding, like, whole area tunnel that was an aquarium. And you could sit on this moving sidewalk and watch just fish swim by you, turtles swim around. Saw sharks in particular like to swim over you and like sit up there. It was hilarious to just look up and see a saw shark with its silly little mouth looking down. After you got through the towers and viewed the wide variety of fish they have at the aquarium, there was this little pool area where you could pet like rays and horseshoe crabs it was amazing for me. And after all that, per usual, there's a little gift shop that sells cute little handmade ornaments and stuff. And while not in the city itself, finally, I'd say you should go down and take a day trip or so to Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls is this famous location that I'm sure if you're from around the area, you've definitely heard of it before. But like, it's just as beautiful as it is in the photos. The beautiful blues and greens and teals and the loud booming sound of the waves crashing down. It's a wonderful experience. If you're already in the area, why not go visit? It's just worth your time to go down to Niagara Falls. It's a nice way to wrap up a trip because then you can just swing back up and drive back home. And I'd say that's how we wrapped up our trip. And Toronto is such a big city. I'm sure there's anything you could find to do, even if you don't want to go to any of the locations I listed. But I do recommend visiting Casa Loma, the CN Tower, Ripley's Aquarium, and the day trip down to Niagara Falls. It's just a wonderful city to visit, and as soon as COVID wraps up, I'd really recommend anybody just go chill over there for a weekend or so.